Peace. It is I, the Emma, Energy Master Allah, and you are watching the Leopard in the Mirror, Canticle of the Mutant Guardian lecture series. If you don't have that book, make sure you grab that joint on Amazon. As always, I record these on Facebook first, and then I upload them on YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube, take a second to subscribe, like, add a comment, all of that. I appreciate you. We are on episode 22, still in book 2, The Power of Wisdom, and this is Canto 20, Truth or Square, the Resurrection of Measure. Yeah. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. I'll read through it, and then we'll go back and we'll discuss it. Here we go. Canto 20, Truth or Square, the Resurrection of Measure. 1. The Call of the Horn. Gabriel's horn sounds not from heaven above, but from the marrow within the bone. It is the resonance of iron, remembering its origin in the stars. The dead rise because vibration restores the pattern. What was scattered learns its rhythm again. Every atom awakens to its own geometry. Judgment is not a tribunal. It is a tuning. It is the echo that proves the word was true. In the temple of the body, the angles realign. 4 right faces of power returning to center, each 90 degrees of honesty. Thus the square is born. 4 corners of comprehension, 4 witnesses to the one. 2. The child in the cube. Truth is the child that learns to stand upright. The womb becomes window, and the body of the mother becomes the world of the son. Yet the son is only free when he knows the clay that molded him was himself all along. He steps from the cipher, skin radiant with the dust of stars, breath heavy with the memory of oceans. He is no longer fed by the cord of belief. He breathes his own fire. From his spine rises the pyramid, 33 steps of flesh toward light. The ladder Jacob saw, the tower man feared to build again. He climbs it not to escape the earth, but to understand its angles. He learns that ascent is measured in descent, and that the hidden apex of the pyramid is the heart. 3. The measure of devil and God. The devil is the mirror that proves God's reflection. The fall was geometry. A descent through proportion, an experiment in difference. When the cube unfolds, it becomes the cross. And every line is a reminder that God created shadow to know his own brightness. So the wise do not destroy the devil, they square him. They fold him back into symmetry until his darkness becomes foundation. His error becomes axis. His rebellion becomes right angle. Thus, power is proven by containment, and the test of divinity is the capacity to hold contradiction without fraction. The architect laughs. Number 4. Limestone remembers laughter. Abacus stones roll like planets on a grid. 585 is the equation of the pyramid's grin. The jest that only the enlightened can hear. Ha ha ha. Window, fence, window. The veil obscures, the gate reveals, the veil opens again. Truth plays hide and seek with itself through the masks of matter. The comedian, not the conqueror, becomes the true ruler of this world, for he sees tragedy and calls it rehearsal. He knows the joke is divine, that the square of reality rests on the curve of illusion. 5. The return to light. At Thales' eclipse, the sun and moon trade faces. Black radiance crowns the sky, and the hidden one below smiles through skin. The hourglass pivots. Water remembers its serpent. Time exhales through the spine of man. Now the horn sounds again, not to summon the dead, but to awaken the living who forgot they were never dead at all. The pyramid breathes. The square dissolves into circle. The circle opens like an eye, and from that eye a voice speaks. I am the measure and the music. The truth that proves itself through laughter. Build me not in stone, but in symmetry of mind. For the temple is complete when the builder sees his reflection in every grain of sand. 6. Stone of Peter. The stone speaks in calculus, each grain a digit, each digit a prayer. Through him the church becomes circuit, a cathedral of equations, arches tracing the parabola of praise. Gabriel's horn turns upon its axis. Finite mouth, infinite throat, and the voice that once called prophets now measures itself in echoes. 7. The cross and the mirror. 4 faces, 4 forces. King carves, queen reflects. Rule keeps the rhythm. Self ignites. Together they form the square. And truth is the 5th unseen face. The cube turned inward. What was temple becomes tuning fork. Every prayer returns its tone. Every tone returns its light. 8. The architect's secret. Obsidian remembers the sun's extinction. In its dark body, the Maltese cross blooms, not as wound, but as wavelength. The interference pattern of God and man. Peter's stone is calcium, dreaming of plasma. The philosopher's bone, the calculus of incarnation. Algebra, the algebra of angels, each variable a vowel of creation. El Kami, the chemistry of Michael, forge of plasma and song. 9. The resurrection of sound. Gabriel is geometry with breath in it. His horn is the rotation of the word, a spiral that ends only by beginning. From his tone the tetrahedra open. Letters unfold into men. Men unfold into galaxies. A is Allah. A is Allah, the earth reborn from her own explosion. The mirror serpent curls around the house, Chi watching its reflection become the builder. 10. The laughing stone. The square dissolves into a smile. Ha ha ha. Window fence window. Every boundary teaches transparency. Truth is not found, it is unfolded. The cube returning to light. Man and God face each other across the mirror, realizing at last there was never glass between them, only understanding. And the horn sings. I am the curve of the straight line, the finite that reveals the infinite. Through me, the cross becomes circle, the word becomes flesh, and flesh remembers it was light. All right. Okay. These are getting denser and denser. So part of the considerations that went into the construction of this book is that I wanted the structure itself and the information itself to go through phases and densities. And so you'll see kind of a growing pattern of information density and the density of layers in the concepts, because it's a data compression. So the idea is for this to operate, for this book to operate like a data compression and decompression, so that it doesn't simply talk about the process of how we incarnate, but it works out the mind in a way that resembles the process of the creation. And the part that you don't pick up on consciously, the divinity within you recognizes naturally. And so it starts to work on you. So while you're reading it begins to work on you and begins to develop you toward remembering the truth of who you really are. Truth of Square is, of course, the 20th letter in the supreme alphabet, corresponding to the letter T. Truth is the ultimate reality. So Allah shows the truth regardless of the angles of the square. This is one of the key places. So there's two places where 360 degrees are mentioned in the supreme alphabet. They are with Allah, which is the letter A, and then in Truth or Square, which is the letter T. And so whereas it is associated with 5 points, as in your 5-point body, arm, leg, arm, head is Allah. Now we're talking about 4 points, 90 degrees to each angle instead of 72. If 72 is God's wisdom, 90 is born at a cipher. So manifest from mental to physical in such a way that you add a cycle of life, you add a person, place, a thing, a being. All right, so you're born a circle. So this concept of borning a circle from the square. So when you divide a circle into 4 parts, each of those interior angles are 90 degrees each. So if you look at a square, as you folding them corners out, it's kind of like a flower unfolding. And so the truth is inside. It's on the inner. So that's kind of the theme here. All right. So we go back. So it's the resurrection of measure. So you've forgotten what your measurements are. And this is the reminder. So because it's the 20th letter in the 20th canto, we've had this theme within this particular, these last few, of an alignment with the major arcana of tarot. So this particular one is associated with the Judgment card. And so the Judgment card features this resurrection scene where you have the Archangel Gabriel, whose name means strength. So he has a similar meaning to Ikenga in Ordinala in Igbo. And then when you look at the themes of the cards and you actually understand a little something about Igbo spirituality, you see that it is identical iconography, except the Igbo explanation has a tendency to be a little more grounded in scientific relationships, whereas the theological approach to the Western tellings has a tendency to get a bit mystical and clouded in its language, such that it just seems like stories of people with wings and all that good stuff. But if you understand what these people's names are, Gabriel is strength of God, God's Ikanga, which is a description of Amadioha, aka Igwe, or Igwe Kala. He resides in the forehead of Anyanwu, who was the sun. In the last video we did the sun card, which was self a savior. And so now we're going into the third eye. So the more specifically, because people get extra hyper airy fairy with that language and the understanding of the third eye. We're talking about the hippocampus. The reason why Amadioha is depicted with ram's horns is because the hippocampus, the part of the brain that maps space and language, is shaped similar to the curl of a ram's horns. I've talked about this several times. So in a conversation about the word of God, the Kanga of God would thus be that which comes upon Mary, whose name means the sea, or there's some other semantics surrounding it, but it mostly associated with the sea. All right, and so one thing I want you to take away from that, just put it in your back pocket, is the sea is not simply water, it is salt water. And when salt water is subjected to magnetic fields from both sides, exactly how our planet is designed, it causes a Lorentz force, Lorentz, that at the poles of the earth, it is perpendicular, aka 90 degrees, so square relationship, that causes not just electric current to form, but it can form vortexes. So if you put strong magnets on top and bottom of a glass of water, on opposite sides of a glass of water, and it's got salt and stuff in it, it will create an electrical current that causes a vortex to form. You can look that up on YouTube. All right, and so that funnel conceptually should remind you of Gabriel's horn. So this idea of vortex formation due to the interaction of magnetic fields and salt water. You are made up of a great deal of salt water because of the salts that exist within your blood. So you made up of mostly water, and that water is very salty within you. So you are a excellent carrier of certain types of currents, but your body regulates those currents in such a way to where it doesn't interfere with important electrical activity like the beating of your heart. All right, so Gabriel's horn sounds not from heaven above, but from the marrow within the bone. Your red blood cells are made by the marrow in your bone. And those red blood cells are themselves shaped like those donuts we've been talking about, the toroids. And so this toroidal topology of these cells allow them to perform certain functions. And so on a very small microscopic level, all of these geometries contribute to specific direction of electrical activity. And when you direct a certain amount of voltage at a certain proportional relationship to the resistance of a geometry or a wire or a carrier, whatever it may be, it creates a current that is found in living things, that helps them organize themselves in the most efficient way possible. We call it phyllotaxis. So with phyllotaxis, it allows a plant to grow its leaves in a spiral pattern that ensures that no part of the plant completely blocks another part of the plant and prevents it from getting sunlight. So it maximizes the amount of sunlight that can it can take in, because that's how it makes its food. What's the significance of this? It's because you're about to understand some of the design of you that is particularly useful for gathering sunlight and making sure that it hits certain places on you, because your melanin operates as an amorphous semiconductor. You can direct the direction of charges and current. All right, so it is the resonance of iron, remembering its origin in the stars of meteoric iron. It has this pattern when you cut it. It's Windham-Staten pattern that has like this crosshatch to it that has 90-degree angles, if I recall, as well as let me see. Well, how deep was it? I just know it's hexagonal, so square and hexagonal patterns that you can cut this thing in, and it's crazy to see, but it just shows how iron, from the beginning of the universe, how it patterns itself versus how it patterns itself when it's on the surface of the earth. And then that reveals greater truths about the way geometries organize themselves in the universe for specific purposes. And this is going on within you as well. So the dead rise because vibration restores the pattern. So you got the right alignments. What was scattered learns its rhythm again. Every atom awakens to its own geometry. So vibration applied to the lattice of the body in a uniform manner unifies the signals of the body. It organizes the charges in the fascia of the body, the electrolytes and all that good stuff. It organizes that in a particular phonon arrangement that also affects the lipid arrangement of the cells. So that's your fats, your oils. And this is where we get into a conversation about the Christos. Why is Christos and anointing, why are these words associated with oil? Because oil changes the nature of charges. It's either going to insulate charges, or it's going to create a gate that lets things in or keeps things from getting out. All of this, so anointing locks something in, or it creates the correct pattern, the gate by which things can pass through or not. And so specific sounds sent through the body will set those gates in one particular configuration, while different sounds will make other ones. This is why the sound that you consume is just as important as the food you consume, if not more, because it can reach more parts of you, and then its effects can often be subtle. And the problem with subtle things is that we tend to discount them or overlook them until it's too late. So just bear that in mind. You become a collection of scattered sounds, so you got to go through some process of resyncing those things so that you can hear the voice of creation, that sound that was foundational to the whole thing, that first word. Judgment is not a tribunal, it is a tuning. So there goes that concept of the resonance, the tuner for it. It is the echo that proves the word was true. The fact that your body actually vibrates in specific places according to specific sounds is a testament to the very design of you, your morphology, forged over billions of years of perfecting. In the temple of the body, the angles realign, four right faces of power, returning to center, each 90 degrees of honesty. So this concept of you have 5 points to a square, but then you also have the interior, the center point. And so if you cut this square into 4 by drawing lines from diagonal to diagonal, cut this up into 4 pieces, you're basically looking at the top-down projection of a pyramid. However, there is an orientation of a tetrahedron, so the triangular prism. So if you don't know the difference between these two things, A pyramid typically has 4 triangle sides and a square base at the bottom. A tetrahedron, aka the triangular pyramid, it tends to it has 4 faces, all of which are triangular. So there's no square base on that. But if you turn the wireframe of that tetrahedron at just the right angle, it actually resembles the top-down projection of the pyramid. And so this goes to show you that identity is often a matter of what position you in. Do you take on one identity when you're in a specific position versus when you're in another? Something to think about. What's the truth, right? The truth is you can assume both because of the nature of your geometry. So both are within your nature. 4 right faces of power return to the center, so that 4 become 5 when you understand the existence of the 5th. Each 90 degrees of honesty. Thus the square is born. 4 corners of comprehension. 4 witnesses to the one. Those 4 corners of that pyramid all come together at their apex, their tippy top. The child in the cube. Truth is the child that learns to stand upright. So truth is the ultimate power, child or star. Power, the number 5, star, 5 points. Child got 5 points. Arm, leg, arm, head. That's the truth. Stand upright. That is a secret reference to the Hebrew letter Zadi, which has a gematria value of 90. And it basically means righteousness or to be upright. So some wordplay right there. The womb becomes window. Coming through, so that's the letter. It's the letter Hey. 5th letter. So that's another play on 5. So we're tearing you up. These 5 had the 5 points of the pyramid. Now this reference to window is to the 5th letter Hey. And the body of the mother becomes the world of the sun. She's the earth. Earth is a moon who is with a star. Islam. So Islam is the connection between the mother who is earth and the star-shaped child who is you. Yet the son is only free when he knows the clay that molded him was himself all along. You've been shaping yourself. That hippocampus of yours and the way that you map language and all of that. You'll understand her language shapes the nature of your visions and your dreams and your intuitions and the way you speak. It has a lot of different implications from a vibratory perspective and how your brain actually maps things relative to physical sensation. He steps from the cipher, skin radiant with the dust of stars, breath heavy with the memory of oceans. It's a love letter to melanin with that line, boy. It's skin radiant with the dust of stars, all the precursors to what makes your melanin are found throughout the universe, highly abundant in the form of stardust. It's in meteors, all of that. We are kissed by the dark, mysterious background of the universe itself. We are the potential for all that is. Breath heavy with the memory of ocean. So that's a bar right there too. So remember I said Mary was associated with the sea, leaving the womb, but even more importantly, we're talking about water cycling. So the atmosphere, the air that you breathe, has evaporated water from the seas and the rivers and whatever else. So you are a part of that system. He is no longer fed by the cord of belief. He's relinquished his umbilical tether. You find a different way to be connected to your mother. Once upon a time, you were physically and explicitly connected to her through that cord. Once the cord is cut, your connection to your mother is through the heart. You have her biology, you have her info within you. It's part of your DNA. So once you understand part of that and how to access that, it gives you a very interesting insight into what our existence really is and how it operates. He breathes his own fire, his own will, willing himself. From his spine rises the pyramid, 33 steps of flesh toward light, building on that spine. The ladder Jacob saw. The tower man feared to build again, the Tower of Babel. Do you have geometrically aligned speech? Resonance. If it don't resonate within you, it ain't gonna resonate for nobody else. And I ain't just talking about metaphorically resonate. I'm talking about if you know which sounds to make in order to send mechanical vibrations to that part of the body, and you know how to do them in specific sequences, you can activate certain effects in the body. You become the controller of your own temple. This body's a pyramid. That thing was built based on your design. The tower man feared to build again. He climbs it not to escape the earth, but to understand its angles. Searching oneself, learning oneself. He learns that ascent is measured in descent. You can't. People forget once you make it to the top of Mount Everest, you still got to make it back. It's not enough for you to reach the tippy top of the mountain, because once you come down on the opposite side, there's people who are at the same level that the people were where you began at. So if they ain't better for you having made it to the top, you have squandered an opportunity to be of service to the people who believe in you. He learns that ascent is measured in descent, and that the hidden apex of the pyramid is the heart. I would argue it is the throat because it filters, but and that the heart is actually at the center of that structure, the geometric center of that structure. But for poetic reasons, we're putting the apex at the heart. That is a reference to Jesus as the cornerstone or capstone. The Bennu bird who emerges at the top of the primordial mound. That is the inspiration for the phoenix later on, and the phoenix is used as a symbol for Christ in various contexts because of the motif of death and resurrection. The devil is the mirror that proves God's reflection. Why then did he create devil? So in the Supreme Wisdom Lessons, they're taught that the original man, Jacob himself was the original man, made devil so that he could show forth and prove that we are God. By having a situation where something that, for all intents and purposes, came out of us, but is pushed to its limits, such that it is as different as you can get from us while still being classified as the same species, if you will. So we push the boundaries of what it is to be human. Once we figured out what the threshold is, then we could work on reintegrating and working out our differences and understanding each of our unique contributions to the social and genetic pool. And yeah, so you had to build something to reflect on so we know what part of us and what aspect of us makes us us. What really makes the difference? The fall was geometry, a descent through proportion, an experiment in difference. So falling, anytime that you hear them talking about falling, somebody falling, there is also descent. So the descent, remember, once you go up that mountain, you got to come down the other side. You'll come down that way ain't the same as you'll come down the other way. One is victorious and then one is, messed up. A descent through proportion. So to break the supersymmetry, instead of allowing it just be random and wild, we have proportion. We have divine proportion, golden ratio, whatever. Everything becomes self-referential and proportional to itself in a fractal manner. And that allows it to expand or have the sense of expansion without having to be perfectly symmetrical and blank out of existence, if you will. An experiment in difference. When the cube unfolds, it becomes the cross. So when you take, you can do that with just regular cube. If you unfold, you place a cube down, place a box, and that box is made such that you fold. Let's say we're looking at it from the top down, and we'll say the north. So the north flap of the box, you fold it out. The east flap, you fold it out. The west flap, you fold that out, and then if the south flap and the top of the box are connected, then you have a figure that has one sticking out to the top, one sticking out to the left, one sticking out to the right, but it has two sticking out to the bottom, and so that difference in length is what gives you the impression of a cross. That is what they're saying. But it is also referring to the fact that the cube is associated with both the body and with the earth. And so this idea of it unfolding into a cross is symbolic. And every line is a reminder that God created shadow to know his own brightness. Contrast. You got to be one thing so that you can tell the difference between the other thing. So the wise do not destroy the devil, they square him. They shame the devil, make him tell the truth. They fold him back into symmetry. You done unfolded into this illusion. We're going to fold you back into symmetry until his darkness becomes foundation. His error becomes axis. His rebellion becomes right angles. We realign him. We teach him right from wrong. He studies with us for 35 to 50 years, is what they used to do in the old days, before they could even come among us and do trade. You got to study, you got to clean yourself up. Thus, power is proven by containment, and the test of divinity is the capacity to hold contradiction without fraction. You should be able to, you are a complex being, you are human. You learn, you grow stronger through pressure and struggle and effort and things of this nature. So there has to be some kind of dichotomy, some kind of friction between the opposites, but then you don't want so much friction you get too rigid and you can't move. And so these are the dynamics that are going on within you. The stress, your ability to feel stress is also, if there's a way for you to, we'll just say, extend your life beyond normal measure, it lies in the fact that your body is designed piezoelectrically such that mechanical stress actually produces an electrical current. And so if you know how to modulate your energy, the older you get, the more you're becoming something of an electrical engineer when it comes to your body. So if you actually understand your body, some interesting things that you can do to make this incarnated experience much more enjoyable for you. Thus, power is proven by containment, and the test of Da Vinci is the capacity to hold contradiction without fracture. So you can be contradictory, but then accept it all as you. Limestone remembers laughter. So that sound, piezoelectric, mechanical stress. When you cause mechanical stress to those materials, they remember it. So especially when they freeze in place. Abacus stones roll like planets on a grid. This is a reference to calculus. So the word calculus is related to calcium and calcination. These concepts that bring together the notion of hardening or transforming some hard, as well as the circulation of energy as a result of assuming that structure. Abacus stones were, of course, made out of similar calcite to that which limestone is made. The limestone that is typically used for something like a pyramid is made from the seashells of deceased sea dwellers. And as I keep using the word sea, keep thinking about Mary. Because Mary in Egyptian also means beloved. Just like David. And depending on the ending that you use, it also connects to the word for pyramid, which is Mer. So Mer and the Meru would be multiple pyramids. But there's some wordplay going on right there. 585 is the equation of the pyramid's grin. The jest that only the enlightened can hear. Ha ha ha. Window, fence, window. So remember earlier I told you window was the meaning of the 5th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, He. And the 8th letter, Hit, means fence or gate or a fenced field. So window, fence, window is a play on this 585. And what's the significance of the 585? That is a pyramid. It's got 5 vertices, aka points. It's got 5 faces. And it's got 8 lines that are used to construct it. So 4 lines for a square base, and then 4 lines leading from the points of that base up to the single apex. So 585, that is the quote unquote Da Vinci code for the shape of a pyramid. But what's up with this ha ha ha? What's up with this laughing? Well, in Arabic, the counterpart to he is ha, and the counterpart to hit is ha. So both spelled with the HA, so it's really ha ha ha. It looks like I'm just saying ha ha ha, but it's ha ha ha. Play on words. The veil obscures. The gate reveals. The veil opens again. That's what they ha ha ha. Telling you. I learned today that in Aramaic, so Jesus, who spoke Aramaic, would not have used the word Father when referring to God. He used the term Allah, which has much wider implications for a cosmic source and a number of other things that don't translate to the simplified, flattened version that we ended up with in this bastardized English. But Alaha, so Alaha, it's Aramaic, the language of Jesus. Truth plays hide and seek with itself through the masks of matter. The you who is truly you remembers and knows, but you are subjecting yourself to this matrix of form and confinement and solidification so that you can learn certain things, feel certain things. The comedian, not the conqueror, becomes a true ruler of this world, for he sees tragedy and calls it rehearsal. So comedians, boy, they are some of the most tortured human beings on the planet Earth. And then they reach that rare place that we sometimes hope all humanity could reach, where you learn to laugh through the hurt. For many of us, if it wasn't for laughter and being able to see the ridiculousness, the absurdity out there in the world, we wouldn't make it. We wouldn't survive. You need that. It's good for you too. It's good for your heart to laugh. You should watch something funny at least once a day. Excuse me. Let's see. For a comedian, not the conqueror, becomes the true ruler of this world, for he sees tragedy and calls it rehearsal. He knows the joke is divine. That is a play on the divine comedy. So the pyramid, the joke that you do all that climbing, once you get to the top and once you look in the face of God, it's just a mirror sitting right there. Say, huh? That the square of reality rests on the curve of illusion. At Thales' eclipse, the sun and moon trade faces. Thales' eclipse occurs in 585 BCE. I ain't going all the way back to this, but you just heard me describe what the 585 is. Now, as far as the Asiatic calendar goes, that we're using it's 5%. 585 falls right at the smack center of the 25,000 year Asiatic calendar, year one. The current Quran cycle. So counting from year one, the midpoint will be around the fall of the Temple of Solomon, 586, and the Thales eclipse, 585, predicts this eclipse will happen in the midst of the Medians and the Lydians being at war. This happens and it scares the crap out of them, so they stop fighting. But Thales tried to tell them. Black radiance crowds the sky, and the hidden one below smiles through skin. So Amun, the hidden one, the concealed one, he's the fourth sound, the in Om, stimulating the center of that brain. When that solar energy and that lunar energy come together in the center. The rise of Ida and Pingala, such that they intertwine, linking both hemispheres and training the brain so that you can experience the information that is within you in a visual format. The hourglass pivots, flipping up the sands of time. Water remembers its serpent. Remember, serpent is word or membrane. Water is the animus, the animation. It is the rasas, the taste, the ability to actually experience as a chemical component. So this is alchemy, reconnecting the chemical aspect of speech, the different hormones, different stuff that has to happen while you are using the motor functions that allow you to speak. And combining that with your temporal mapping, which includes timing, so circadian rhythms and stuff like that. Time exhales through the spine of man. Sands like an hourglass. Now the horn sounds again, not to summon the dead, but to awaken the living who forgot they were never dead at all. Only time you hear about resurrection in the supreme mathematics is with that number, with power. Power to truth is the power to resurrect the mentally dead from their present state of awareness. Gabriel's horn. So I told you there was an association with funnels, funnel formation, vortexes, all of that. Well, another interesting thing to find out is that there is a calculus figure that is called Gabriel's horn. It involves a topology that is effectively finite on one surface, but it is infinite on its outer surface. And technically, just topologically goes on forever and ever and ever. And there are some experiments I've done with respect to that shows that that same concept of the funnel formation in the water is some surprising ways related to this Gabriel's horn thing. The pyramid breathes, the square dissolves into circle. The circle opens like an eye, and from that eye, a voice speaks, I am the measure and the music, the truth that proves itself through laughter. Build me not in stone, but in symmetry of mind. So remember that association with stone I mentioned earlier, where talking about that firmament. When the sun comes out, the ionosphere densifies. It blocks their radiation. Once it's nighttime, it dissipates. Build me not in stone, but in symmetry of mind. See, I don't need your statues and your effigies and all that stuff. I need y'all to see how I'm a reflection of you. How I'm a reflection of that which has created. For the temple is complete when the builder sees his reflection in every grain of sand. There's wisdom permeating and penetrating on all levels. Stone of Peter. Peter's name means stone, Petros. This is the source of his. I did an investigation earlier today involving Sur, which is used for rock or the rock of salvation. So Sur Yeshua no. There you go. Sur Yeshua no. So you hear that Yeshua in there, that Jesus. So that's salvation. Rock of salvation. So Peter, he got his crash course in ministering to Gentiles in Tyre, aka Sur, which are names for Phoenician place. Phoenician means forest dweller. They're associated with a carpenter or woodworkers. So this is what Jesus was. He's a Phoenician, not in ethnicity, but by definition, he would have used the word nagar. The Greeks used tekton, and tekton is the root word at play with both architect, first builder, and with tectonic plates. So the king of Tyre, or Tyre, was King Hiram or Hiram. And Hiram Abiff is who in Freemasonry they say, he built Solomon's temple, but then they say he and Jesus may be one and the same according to some sources, but they say they got a little perfectly preserved body of a black man that they say is Jesus. They got him in I think they call it the house or temple of Umar or something like that in Jerusalem. We gotta get a special pass to go to it apparently. But hey, I ain't seen it for myself, so it's neither here nor there. The stone speaks in calculus, each grain a digit, each digit a prayer. Through him the church becomes circuit. Peter, you are the rock on which my church will be built. Jesus is using some wordplay. And that when Jesus performed his first miracle on a Gentile, he told that woman at first, he was like, somebody, he didn't come to throw his food to the dogs. He was sent for the sheep of Israel. But then the woman told him, something, not throwing food to the dogs. She said, even a dog will eat the crumbs that are dropped by his master. And then Jesus was moved by this, killed that woman's daughter from a distance. And this became it was once a place that was facing destruction at the hands of God's wrath, and it instead became the place where the most faithful were, and they expanded their church and everything else. And it's basically to show that it's not about you trying to make a big, gaudy campaign, having to self-promote. It's about you doing something impactful before 12 people, and it spreads on its own from there until it becomes a global circuit. A cathedral of equations, arches tracing the parabola of praise, so the way that sound moves and its behavior through space, it doesn't change in such a way that it becomes unrecognizable as such. Gabriel's horn turns upon its axis. So the way that you make the Gabriel's horn thing in math or graphing, it involves taking a parabola and then rotating it in 3D space about the x-axis. It has an opening to the left, and then it has a long infinite tail going out to the right because of the way it curves. That's what it is. Finite mouth, infinite throat. That's the description of Gabriel's horn in calculus. And the voice that once called prophets now measures itself and echoes. Do you have the original? Do you know the original way that something was said? Do you know it in the original language? You may think it's harmless to just go out here and just be using English versions of stuff all willy-nilly. But it's just like wires or circuits in the computer. Like, you gotta have the correct paths. If it ain't connected correctly, it ain't gonna work. So you gotta connect the right words to the right stuff. 4 faces, 4 forces. Brahma, 4 faces, facing 4 directions. 4 forces. You got 4 fundamental forces. They are the nuclear weak force, the nuclear strong force, gravity, and electromagnetism. King carves, queen reflects, rule keeps the rhythm, self ignites. Together they form the square, and truth is the 5th unseen face. So you got a quartet going on there between the king, the queen. Well, I don't know why I did them that one. Power was right for a queen, but it's fine. Makes sense. Rule keeps the rhythm, self ignites. Remember, rule is the guy that shows the original man how to live right and exact. And it's self. Self was savior. Savior is one who saves others after first saving self. Self is a true identity. A man, woman, and God. Man, woman, and child. Together they form the square. 4 corners and we got this. So that's a pyramid imagery again. The cube turned inward. The corners turn inward. So it's circle with the cross and then fold them squares out. What was temple becomes tuning fork. Every prayer returns a tone as tone. Every tone returns as light. So this idea of the body having resonance once you get it in the right alignment. Obsidian remembers the sun's extinction. Obsidian is a type of volcanic glass that is pitch black. And then this reference to extinction, it says in its dark body, the Maltese cross blooms. So when these little spheroids that are left behind by these volcanic activities, they're essentially like little glass beads, right? And so these beads, the way light hits them, they have this effect. It's called a Maltese cross. So it basically looks like a shadow. It is like a cross. You've probably seen something like this in certain materials, certain objects. And that particular effect was of interest to me at the time because there were associations having to do with Atlantis and the Knights Templar. Yeah, they strongly believe they know where Atlantis was, and they got certain knowledge from Atlantis that they believe they have. Not as womb, but as wavelength. So it swallows the wavelength, and then conceptually it's very reminiscent of how melanin works for us on a microscopic level. The interference pattern of God and man. So there's different ways to dissipate and scatter light, and that's one of them. All right, Peter Stone is calcium, dreaming of plasma. So we're talking about some astrophysics, talking about these calcium ions and these charged particles, these high energy charged particles. The philosopher's bone, of course, a play on the concept of the philosopher's stone, the ultimate enlightenment. When you find out that they're doing advanced calculus and alphanumeric conversion on the Shango bone, it ain't just some primitive bone sitting out in the woods 20 to 25,000 years ago. People were doing advanced math and physics so they can make better predictions. Algebra. So it's a play on Gabriel. If you reverse them syllables a little bit. Algebra. So it's a slightly different word that is typically associated with the origin of algebra, but each variable a vowel of creation. El Kami is literally the syllables of Mikael. So Mikael, El Kami, alchemy. And they feature Mikael on the Alchemist card in tarot, which is also called Temperance. So the chemistry of Mikael, forged of plasma and song. The concepts perfecting and high energy plasmas become condensed and compressed into the ionic move and the electrical activity in your body. The resurrection of sound, Gabriel is geometry with breath in it. His horn is the rotation of the word. A spiral that ends only by beginning. From his tone, the tetrahedra opens. So these little triangle things open up. Letters unfold into men. Men unfold into galaxies. So this is a reference to the Syrian image, which we will get into in the commentary section of this book, where I show you this impossible figure that I derived by putting the letter A inside of a tetrahedron, rotating it a couple times on its axes, and then all of a sudden this image that very clearly resembles an elk man, like he has elk horns, as well as a bird, appears to be a vulture of some sort, and then it's got two guys in armor that look like either Edo armor in Benin or Edo Japan armors for samurai. It's interesting once we get to it, I promise you. It's Allah, the earth was born from her own explosion. So that's a reference to Eke, the divine feminine, and the embodiment of all material in the universe, prima materia, if you will. She explodes in the story due to trying to peek in on her husband's work, and then she ends up being resurrected as Allah, the spirit of earth. The mirror serpent curls around the house. Chi, watching its reflection, become the builder. So that is the spark directly from the creator, and he builds a physical body for itself that's associated with Eke. So there's other components. So Chi is the supreme, Eke is his counterpart, the feminine. You have a Chi, that's your spiritual double. It's essentially you, but it's just the aspect of you that you can't control, such that he stays connected to the source and is able to give you any manner of information. Watching this reflection become builder. The square dissolves into a smile, ha ha ha. Square window, square fence. Every boundary teaches transparency. Truth is not found, it is unfolded. The cube returning to light. Remember that whole concept of organizing the stuff so that light can get to every section. Man and God face each other across the mirror, realizing at last there was never glass between them, only understanding a mental image. If your mental image is interfering with you being able to see the truth, you might need to reevaluate. And the horn sings, I am the curve of the straight line, the finite that reveals the infinite. Through me, the cross becomes circle. So remember that 360, we going swapping between square and circle. Circle spiritual, square physical, material rather. Both are technically physical, spirit is an extension of the physicality. It's essence and all of that good stuff. The word becomes flesh, and flesh remembers it was light. So hell biblical, just about. But that's it. So tomorrow we'll get into the 21st canto, which will deal with you or universe. If you haven't already, make sure you like, subscribe, drop a comment. And as always, I will catch you in the next one. Peace.